Good Christmas and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I do want to say to Mr. Commissioner Jernigan there how sorry we are all for the loss of your wife Barbara. She was a wonderful person and she will be dearly missed. Beyond that, hope everybody got a chance to look over the minutes for the December 8th meeting, and we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I want to make one note that the minutes you received had December 10th on the first page. All the rest of the pages had December 8th on them, but the copy you have in front of you is correct. So,
We should approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Fee, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the investment report. Mr. Bailey, welcome.
Thank you, sir. We did not have a bid last month, partly because it was kind of end of the year, partly because we're waiting on the Fed to make their decision, which is short-term as we stay, has obviously a much greater impact on what we do than others, and they did raise the interest rates a quarter percentage point. So we saw a 5 basis point increase in the LGIP rate as it was already moving up, and I think we'll see more of that in the days ahead, and it will affect, I think, the bids that we get. Mark and I had a discussion. I think it's kind of good for somebody. The LGIP rate is 42 basis points. We don't have anything at LGIP now, which we have, and the reason for that is our agreement with the bank is 26 basis points above LGIP. But we decided to continue to show the LGIP rate because it's a pretty good, it's something we've used for years, so it's a pretty good basis on which to judge kind of what we're doing. So what we've done is we've moved that money so that we're getting the advantage of that extra 26 basis points, and it fluctuates as the LGIP rate goes up, but we'll just continue to report that. But just remember, we're getting a premium over that on our money. We even moved the bond funds and all of that over so that we're getting that extra revenue off of that.
Any questions of Mr. Bailey? Entertain a motion to approve the report.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen.
Second.
Commissioner Bond. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Beatty. Fund condition report. Ms. Noah.
Okay, starting with the development tax. In December, we received $434,250, which brings our total, after any adjustments, to $3,021,000, and our budget was at $2.5 million. Our cash balances at the end of December totaled $301,655,000, with $209,400,000 being operating funds and $92,255,000 being borrowed funds. While y'all look at that, I'll just jump over to revenue. I'm going to do a little follow-up on the property tax. At the end of December, we collected the trustee had collected 48.7% of the tax roll, compared to last year, we had collected 51.5%. Roll one back in 2014, we had collected 47.86%. So we're all in the ballpark. You know, one big payment could skew those numbers. There's, as far as the revenue, there's nothing. One thing that jumped out at me under the general fund is how much we've collected in the total other local revenues. I mean, it's not a lot of money. We've collected 73% of our budget, but a lot of that has to do with the sale of property, equipment, performance bond forfeitures, and contributions, which number will change as the different departments come in and request that their contributions be budgeted into their different departments. Sales tax in the rural area is 12.69% higher. For 5 months reporting countywide, we are 8.72% higher than we were for the same time last year.
questions of Ms. Nolan?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne.
Second.
Mr. Kaplan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving right along to the risk management financial report, Ms. Street. And you brought back up again, I see.
Yeah. He's in training, so he's not released yet. So.
That was your bodyguard.
That's right. I'll let Mr. Davenport go over Fund 264 today.
So for this month, we closed out the calendar year 2016. Revenue came in at $5,880,000, while expenses were just over $5 million, right under $5.1 million. So we recovered another almost $800,000, second month in a row in Q4. Once again, that's the direction we want to be trending into. Last 2 months of the year, out of the deficit on the page 2 that you can see, our deficit was going to be projected around $6.5 million. We're now at $4.5 million thanks to the last 2 or 3 months. So once again, like I said, last month we're trending in the right direction for what we would like to see for this fund. And then the last page, once again, just to remind you, this is the 3rd month now that we've shown these reports. This is just kind of our backup information and what everyone has been used to in the past.
Within Fund 266, we've ended at the month of December at $348,335 compared to prior year of $301,693.
Any questions of Ms. Street or Mr. Davenport?
With this newer presentation, remind us one more time why on the very first chart, the purple line dips down.
Sure,
Seems
absolutely.
like quarterly, or maybe it's once a year.
It's actually during the summer period, so that directly correlates with the school system, where we're getting 10 months of contribution premium that the employees are paying in. That's dropping in those summer months when there's no school. So expenses are staying the same. Never seen that drop. We do have the recovery periods that you can see right after, but that's kind of the drop that is typical and what we would expect to see there with that 10-month schedule.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
10 months of premium, but 12 months of payout. That's
Yes, sir.
nice.
The 10 months equates to a 12-month annual.
Yeah, I know, it just balanced out a
Yeah,
little
we
bit.
just book it in different months.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Mr. Jernigan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Got a general fund budget amendment for fire and rescue. Chief Farley, welcome.
I've got 2 different amendments, and I don't know which one.
25 on the first one.
Okay. We actually sold 3 old fire trucks. The first one was for $25,000, and we want to put some of that in part-time and overtime, plus benefits.
I think we can take both these as one, can we not?
Yeah, okay.
If there's no questions on the first one, we go to the second one.
And we sold 2 more for $20,000 each, which is $40,000. We want to put $25,000 in that to go toward the new pumpers coming in this month, and $10,000 for equipment that will go on those pumpers, and then $5,000 for uniforms.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner Baum. Any further discussion? I'm sure Chief would be glad to answer any questions.
Well, part-time personnel, what are they needed for? Is this
They're
administrative?
PRNs, they fill in for our paid guys when they got Kelly days or sick days.
Where do you get them from?
We open it up just like any other job, and they have to have the same qualifications our paid guys do. We were filling it with volunteers, and that played out.
Who are the type of folks you sell the vehicles to?
Actually, Cannon County bought 3 of them. We had a deal that I went through the mayor and the purchasing committee to sell 4 of them for $90,000, but they had a little shortage of funds. And I think actually one of them one of the chiefs of the department put $10,000 of his own money up, and they bought 3 of them.
These are all last century or some?
They're the ones that the new ones we're buying, we surplus them, they're buying those.
What's that, the old
Old
one
ones.
trucks?
What we know is the old trucks, they're international single cabs.
We bought them in what, 90, 91? something like that?
1990,
So they're getting a little age on
25
them,
years
but
old.
they've been maintained. They could be a good piece
Yeah, I
of equipment
mean,
for a smaller rural
For
county,
a
something
small
like
rural
that.
department like they are, and for not many runs, and of course the tight places they have to get into in a rural setting, those really have good apparatus for them. Plus they're off standard shifts, so they don't have to worry about tearing the transmission out of it.
If there's no more further discussion, call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Chief. You have a good evening. We got a drug fund budget amendment.
Good evening.
I guess it's Acting Sheriff Lowry. I don't know
Just
what the
keep-
name is.
How's everybody tonight? Good, thank you. Okay, well, get some stuff up. What we've done here is a request to move $110,000 out of our restricted drug fund account, and with that, breaking that up into $35,000 to purchase a new vehicle for the drug operators to use, and then along with that, $75,000 to be used for surveillance equipment, paying confidential informants, things of that nature for operations.
Motion to approve the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Commissioner P. Any discussion? This is restricted money that has to go back in this type of work anyway. It's not
Yes, sir.
money we could go pay anybody else.
We're preparing some things right now. They're actually detailing some of the vehicles, the seized vehicles, to hopefully put up in auction in the very near future. So
Just curious, I had somebody ask me one time, they said, why do we have to buy vehicles when we have the confiscated vehicles?
A lot of times the confiscated vehicles, unfortunately, are in such shape that you don't want to use them to work out of. For instance, if a vehicle you take is taken from that local area, they know the drug dealer, it's already burned, so to speak. It's already known as an actively used drug. There used to be a program where you could actually trade vehicles between entities. For instance, we can talk about coffee can. They'd seize one, then they'd switch vehicles with one of ours, so they wouldn't have such a problem. But that became an issue under the asset forfeiture and seizure changes that were made a few years ago.
Okay.
Be bad to take a drug dealer's car and then put an undercover officer in and go try and sell the guy something out of his own car.
Yeah, could happen.
Yeah. That might be too safe for the undercover officer. No further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Got an ambulance service budget amendment. Mr. Nolly?
And
And Mr. Hafner, I believe,
there's
and
room.
Ms. Stevenson might as well come up from what I understand.
some of her numbers are in it, so you may have a question.
We have been trying to address the problem of fixing the staffing issue that we have at the ambulance service. We have numerous vacancies and have made a little bit of progress, but not a lot. I think the most disheartening thing is the ambulance service here in Rutherford County has had a stellar reputation in the state of Tennessee for a long time. And so we haven't really had to contend with searching for employees because we generally had a ready supply of employees. And we don't have that anymore. And one of the issues that continually came up whenever we were recruiting at the EMT classes and the paramedic classes has been, why would I want to come to work for you because you're working your employees to death and not paying them anything. So we've seen a steady stream of employees that have left us this year, or in 2016. And we're just having difficulty attracting people to those positions. I was here last month and asked you to allow us to transfer $200,000 from paraprofessionals to overtime, and the way we're able to keep the ambulance stations open is by using overtime, and we're continually doing that. Just to give you an example, we have 2 ambulances tomorrow that are out of service. The reason they're out of service is because we don't have anybody to work on them. We couldn't find anybody to work on them, even paying overtime. So I think we are working our people very hard. They have all the overtime that they want and need, and we're just trying to fill our full complement of positions. I asked Joe and Sonia if they would come up with a plan. We actually had a meeting in the mayor's office, and we discussed a number of ways to address this issue. Some of them are long-term, and we're beginning to implement those, such as involving EMT classes in the Rutherford County schools. And they're very exciting about that. So I think there's numerous ways that we can address it and are addressing it, but the most pressing issue right now is to get at least the beginning salaries up to something that would attract people that are coming into the field, or even people who are looking for a job. So I think I'll just let Joe and Sonia explain how we came up with this. I'll have to let Lisa explain the budget amendment, because I didn't really think that we needed a budget amendment for this. We're projecting a surplus in our paraprofessionals account, and I feel like that will cover it, but Lisa has some other reasons why she needed to do the budget amendment.
I'll start
Yeah, go
on
ahead.
this piece of it.
Well, before you do, Mike, you said something a moment ago. You said you were not up to full complement, or did I misunderstand you? You're saying you're lacking enough employees right now that you have you have open positions, is what you're saying. How many open positions do you have?
It varies from day to day. As a matter of fact,
No, I mean, as far as budgeted employees that you have budgeted, do you have all those positions filled?
Got 9, we lost a couple today. Melanie sent me information, 9 paramedics and 6 EMT openings.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
So
7,
15
8, 9,
anyway.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Does that include the ones that came
available.
because you only
Yeah.
budgeted
That's
for
how many
half the
vacant
year?
positions
So it was
we
9
have.
plus
Yeah.
6 that became available January the 1st.
We have that many vacant positions today plus 1, because we had one other one turn in his resignation today.
How does that compare on a percentage basis with other departments? I mean, I'm sure other departments have some openings, but is it higher on a percentage basis for you all than other areas?
We don't have all that information. I mean, this has been a continuous process of gathering information. We need a lot more data. Turnover, we know what the turnover rates are in our public safety departments. And I'll just read those to you. For 2016, EMS was 20%, Juvenile Detention Center was 31%, the Adult Detention Center was 23%, Animal Control is 33%, and the Work Center is 22%. So it's comparable, they're all in the same range. But we've got a systemic problem with public safety that we're going to have to address.
Could I get clarification on the 50, just for my own personal, or 15 open positions? I said we just had 15 positions come online. That's two different
That is two different
worlds
things,
right
yeah.
there. I mean, if we're trying to fill 15 new positions,
Well,
that's
six new positions came online, I
oh,
believe, is that
6.
right?
You said 9 plus 6, but
9
6
plus
came on.
6, yeah.
Okay, so there's
15.
from the historic population or employed as of December of 26, we've got 9 open positions, which is a alarming number in itself, but it's
9
not
out of
15.
129, now 135 available positions, 9 out of 129 positions.
I'm just trying to grasp where these numbers are coming from.
129 are actually not people on the trucks. We actually have
I
90
understand.
plus the new 6 on the trucks. And so, or maybe total of 90 on the trucks. So as part of that
that number of 129 are people that we're not even talking about, because the turnover has actually been in that group of 90. So it's actually a smaller number.
You got communications in that group, and you got, somebody retired in there if you want.
Are we conducting exit interviews or questionnaires with these folks when they leave?
If they respond. So what we've asked departments to do starting 2017 is that as soon, we had a supervisor meeting and an administrative assistant meeting, because typically those are the individuals who know first. That if somebody says, hey, I'm going to be leaving at the end of 2 weeks, I've got another job, for them to notify us that day. Our goal now, we used to try to do an in-person exit interview before they left. And some people would say they didn't feel comfortable with that setting, and so they would say, so we went to the paper where we would mail it to their home and ask them to complete it. We do not have a good response rate. Probably 1 out of every 20 comes back. So it's very hard to gauge that. But we do send it to them. So we're trying a different approach this year.
Well, I know a couple personally that have left in the last year to go somewhere else because they said they would do less work or more money, or a combination of both. So, and I've mentioned it either at this meeting or Health and Ed in the past. We had a problem in it, and so I completely believe we need to deal with it. I don't know if dealing with it here in January of the budget year without having full numbers, because I think it's also a problem with all the public safety departments now. And I'm not trying to be a wet blanket here, but I'm just wondering if we're armed completely to make a decision tonight. But
Well, the ambulance service is running about 3,000 calls a month. And what is it? If you take in everybody with the sort team and all that, it's 17, right? Different buildings or places that we have ambulances coming from. So you can divide 17 into 3,000 if it works, and it doesn't work out even. Some of them, like here in Middle Tennessee and Burton and Salem, are just crammed, and you're pulling them in from other places just to cover them because they're gone. And this type of thing, and that's why when you say about the amount of work you're doing, if people get to a point where overtime's nice, but they've got enough to pay the bills and have something extra, and they want time to do something with that money they make. I mean, it's a fact of life. And we've approached that, I think, from just listening to the figures we get every month on public safety. And we didn't used to have, you take a year ago, it was about 300 less than 27 to 28 is what we're getting. Now we're getting 3,000 calls.
Well, I believe we got a problem here based on what I've heard. But one of the reasons I was asking about the percentages is just to see if the problem here is worse than in other areas. Maybe it's 9 vacancies with 90 people in the appropriate category. It's about 10% vacant. We've mentioned some other areas that have some vacancies. I just wonder, is their vacancy percentage higher or lower than about 10%? And I don't know, but I just want to make sure we're addressing the problem that's most severe in the department that's got the most positions to fill relative to their employment level.
I took the numbers that Sonia had worked on, the individual departments, and the problem with that number is, if you have 4 people in one department, you miss 1 person, that's 25% turnover. You got 100 people, you miss 10 people, it's 10%. So what I did is I benchmarked it, or just used one point of reference, and that was the total number of employees, the 1,086. And I used that to see what percentage of the piece of that pie came from each department. And so it changed it dramatically, because now we're looking at the turnover rate for each department from the same point of reference. And it shows that the sheriff's department is clearly the worst, because they're around 3% of that piece of the pie, where we're 2.3, 2.4%. And so we're second in place. And here's the biggest thing for us. It's not, the turnover's bad, and it is the worst, and probably even the numbers Sonia calculated is better for internal look, because you can see the trend up, that we're up to, a pretty large jump in turnover in just 1 year.
And it was up higher last year than the previous years, but then it was flat for quite a while. So we're seeing a definite trend upward. And we've always had the ability to fill those positions. So turnover was never really a big concern for us because we had people just waiting in the wings for a job. Now, we didn't have this dramatic of a turnover. We still had a substantial amount of turnover, but we just filled them. Now we've got an uptick in our turnover, and we don't have people waiting in the wings. So we've got this double whammy here, and it's really because every time we hire people in the past, we'd hire once a year. Sometimes we'd hire twice a year. We just were inundated with applications. People were waiting for a job, and every one of them we hired wanted to be full-time. Now, we hired 13 last month. We hired some the month before, and some the month before. And out of the 13, only about 3 wanted full-time. We hired 4, we actually hired 5 yesterday and today. They did their orientation yesterday and today. One of them didn't show up. Out of that 4, only 1 wants full-time. So we just had a total change in what's going on, and most of them say, well, you know, I'm making the same money in Bedford County. And that's the thing, we never competed with them before because it was never the same. We were always higher than them. But we've been so flat, we've been relatively flat for 10 years as far as the pay tables. They hadn't really moved much. And so we've just gotten behind. And so now we can't fill those positions. We just can't attract people. We can hire people for part-time, but we can't get them here full-time. And so we've got this double whammy, and that's our problem. We got to do something about it.
Is the Bedford County providing the same benefits we are? I mean, I know it's hard to sell that to a candidate because they won't know how much
they don't
cash
realize
they're
how
taking
valuable
home.
it is.
But you know,
But
the
it is hard
benefits
to
is
sell.
huge. As a self-employed person, benefits is huge, I can tell you.
And one of the
Yeah.
things that we've done, when we first had the meeting, when Mike said, you know, hey, guys, we've got an issue that's brewing, and he has to meet with the mayor and myself and Joe, we started looking at our recruiting efforts. And so one of the things that we did, I mean, we've done several things throughout this process. The recruiting efforts was to recruit all Clarksville, the military who are releasing, they're releasing 30 to 40 medics a month. Now, all of them don't want to live in Tennessee and these places, but we've started those efforts. I've got a contact there that we send flyers. They're sending those out. And I mean, we got 12 hits from that right off the bat, sent those to Randy White, people who were going to be released that, you know, thought they might be interested. Now, I don't know, Joe said he didn't have a list of like who of those 12 we've actually developed a relationship with already, or if they're going to be released in future months and they're getting ready. So we've got those 12. And then they have a gentleman by the name of Tony Peaton who's also done some recruiting at job fairs at the local schools. You've got MTSU, Chattanooga, Motlow, and he's done a really good job of recruiting from that perspective. We've got 25 from MTSU, EMTs applications. Chattanooga, we got 12 EMT applications and 10 paramedics. Motlow, we got 26 EMTs and 12 paramedics. And then from our NeoGov site, we posted the positions because historically we had only posted PRN, because part of what their process, as Joe has mentioned, is that they didn't really have an issue with hiring full-time, but they had somebody who was just wanting to be part of the team and to be in line. So they would hire the PRNs, put them through their training program, and then when they got ready, if they had an opening, they could move them over into that slot. So that way they got a feel for how the employee was going to work, they were fully trained, and then they could go on to themselves. So we posted full-time positions on our NeoGov system, and we got 23, and this report was pulled as of December 30th. We had 23 full-time applications for EMT, 71 PRN EMT applications, 6 paramedic applications full-time, and 27 PRN paramedics. So the recruiting efforts have been in there to where we've got the applicants, but now through the testing process to vet them, they have to pass a test, they have to pass a training program. We're not rolling them out completed as quickly as maybe the turnover. And clear up what Joe was talking about, because I don't think the mayor had seen this, what Joe was talking about. When I did my turnover comparison, I do it based on what your turnover is, based on the number of employees in your department, by department specific. So as he mentioned, with 4 people in my department, 1 leaves, I've got 25% turnover, but that's 1 person. The other analysis is we take their number of people that they've lost as comparison to the total number of employees within the county, which is a different look. And our public safety positions are still in the numbers. So like for the ambulance service, when you consider the people that they lost versus the total number of employees, theirs is 2.39%. JDC is 1.01%. Sheriff's Office is 1.47. The jail is 3.13. And Correctional Work Center is 1.01. So it still ends up that our public safety departments are the ones rising to the top. They're the only ones in a whole, what I call a whole percentage as far as the turnover.
They're losing enough in actual numbers to drive it above 1%, where the other ones, even though they had individual department numbers that were pretty high, once you factor it into 1,086 employees, it really dropped their percentage below 1%.
With these pay scale adjustments, how do you feel like you're positioning yourself in the labor market? Are we in the middle? Are we going to be more towards the high? How do you feel about that in terms of retention?
Well, let Sonia address it. It's hard to see these numbers, and determine where we are.
Okay.
It looks like we're competitive with starting salaries, but they're telling us workload is a problem. They're not considering benefits as a problem or a benefit. And it's a very, very complex matrix of pieces of information. We're talking about recruiting, and we didn't have to recruit. So now we are developing some recruiting plans, which are really making a difference, hopefully. The scheduling, the rotation of this workload, we haven't addressed that. They've tried to address that. So all of these issues bring together a very complex matrix of information that I can't really decide if this pay is 50% of the problem or 100% of the problem or 20% personally.
Is your work schedule the same as comparable departments around that we're losing people to? Basically, you work 2 on, 1 off, or what's your schedule?
We've lost some people to Metro. Metro is different than us. They work 12-hour shifts. We work 24 on, 48 off. But most of the rest of the surrounding counties work like we do, 24 on, 48 off.
Metro pays a lot more than anybody, don't they?
Yeah.
Their call volume is bound to be much worse than ours, you would think.
Well, they do have some trucks that run quite a bit, but you'd be surprised. They're working 12 hours. I worked there for 6 years, and at the time I was there back in the 80s and 90s, we dropped down to 8 units for the whole city of Nashville. That wasn't what we wanted, but it happened. And we'd only run 12 or 13 units. So you got to think back then, we're where they were back then, because we're running more units than that. But they are fairly busy, but they do pay them.
One of the difference too is we're one of the few counties that has a dedicated ambulance service. A lot of the other entities, like even if we're looking at Murfreesboro, who is taking paramedics to be on their fire trucks, a lot of the paramedics are either, the ambulance services are either wrapped in. So if we talk about Wilson County, who recently increased their pay, well, theirs are firefighters and advanced EMTs and firefighters and paramedics. They're dual roles, as I'm told by the HR director in Wilson County. And so that's under their EMA department. So their EMA department has emergency management, it has fire and rescue, it has ambulance, and they're all rolled into one, so they're multi. So when I look to say who is the only entities that I found, and might correct me if I'm wrong, if whoever I contacted gave me misunderstood my question, the only ones out of, so we've got Murfreesboro, Wilson, Lebanon. Of course, Lebanon did not get back with me. Williamson is through the hospital, so that is a dedicated unit, correct? That's private industry. Then you've got Franklin, Montgomery, Clarksville, Hamilton, Sumner, and then Metro Nashville. So Sumner County and Rutherford were the only 2 out of that, unless Hamilton is, because they didn't get back to me. Is Hamilton dedicated or?
Hamilton's a strange bird. They have a dual type of service there, and in the actual downtown Chattanooga area, that's through their fire department. But in the rural areas, it isn't dedicated.
Dedicated. So some of that, you know, and I don't know if that's why, maybe the pay structure is a little bit different because they're coordinated in with their fire or their emergency management so that they're multidisciplined. I don't know. I can't really answer that question, but I did think that that was a interesting kind of a anomaly.
Sonia, just because they're running out of the fire department doesn't mean they're multidisciplined. For instance, Metro, the medics that work for Metro are not firemen, but they wear a fire department uniform. Same way in Chattanooga.
Okay.
These additional, this affects 100 positions here for your EMT, your paramedic, and your paramedic 1 and your paramedic 2. The percentage of the raises that you've given here, do they correlate to where you're losing the employees the most? So for example, are you losing the most of your EMTs and they're getting a 9% pay raise versus a paramedic 2 at 3%?
Primarily the EMTs is the attracting position. You know, we've been remiss in not taking care of our EMTs over the years, I think. It was because we had so many. They were basically a dime a dozen. And what we were more concerned with was getting those EMTs through paramedic school. And so we created a wide gap between the two to give them an incentive to go to paramedic school. And looking back, I think that was probably a mistake because what's happened now is that we're way lower with our EMT position starting pay than most everybody else. And so, you know, the people that are graduating EMT school, they're just looking past us because of the low pay.
And what we've done, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What we had done in the past, like with surveys, when we looked at it, we would try to put our emphasis, as Mike said, on the paramedics more so than the EMTs. So if we had money that was dedicated, we wanted to encourage a paramedic because obviously you can't have 2 EMTs on an ambulance. You can have 2 paramedics, but you can't have 2 EMTs. So the drive was to keep the paramedics coming because you've got to have a
But it never
paramedic.
really translated into more money for the paramedic because they never got a raise. Another thing that we did was just looking at the logistics of the pay table. There was room. And so we were trying not to upset the apple cart by moving all these positions too much out of whack. And there was a lot of room to move the EMT up to about where the sheriff deputy is. And that's where it probably needed to be anyway. And then there was a little bit of room to move the paramedic 1s up 2 spots, which is 6%. And then there was a very little room to move the paramedic 2 up 1 spot. So that's not where the money is not right. This is not going to fix our problem. We're hoping that it'll send a signal that we're not going to lose anybody else. Is to do something, because we've got to do something, because for one, we got people waiting in the wings to see what's going to happen here, because they're shopping, they're looking. We don't have numbers. I don't know how many people are looking for another job, but we do see what else is going on. Now, you know, I did another look at just to see what the starting pay of a paramedic was back in 10 years ago. It was $37,000, a little over $37,000. It's only $39,000 now. $2,000 difference in 10 years. That's not a big move. Now everybody in the county is suffering the same fate. I'm not saying it was only the paramedics, but we haven't kept up with inflation. I mean, we've gone up on benefit costs, but we haven't gone up on anything as far as keeping that pay table at 0. So we're not asking for a raise. We're trying to get back to 0.
Yeah.
And we're a good almost 16% out of whack. If you look at, of course, I know I'm oversimplifying, but if you look at the national inflation rate over the last 10 years, they're about 2% a year average, not every year. But
Within that 39 with that 10 years experience, how does that pay compared to the same paramedic in another town or another area that we're losing them
well,
to?
you know, I don't know all the facts, but I think that once we get up in the upper end of this, that it's enough money for people to feel comfortable working here. I think they're making good money. So I do feel like the upper end of our pay is a good amount. But still, if you look at the table, you know, if you go back 10 years, the table didn't move in different areas. It stayed the same, you know, as far as every grade or every step and every grade. But you know, no one has really seen much of a change, and so we're actually paying people less money as far as the table, and they're working harder.
As much as I know recruitment is a problem, we all have talked about this multiple times about how expensive it is to replace somebody. And so I really want us as much as possible to try to help you address both things. And whether we have to do it in 2 measures or this one just to get you started, I just want to make sure we really address that problem of recruitment and retention.
Mayor Burgess, are you trying to say something a second ago?
We're talking about a lot of complicated stuff here. If we raise this table, we raise entry position all the way out. And if you computed the dollars it's going to affect current people in this budget amendment,
Yes, that's because I am already working on the 17, 18 numbers. That's what Mike was alluding to. He thinks he's going to have savings in the paraprofessional, so overall, end of the year, close the books, may not need this. But I wanted to demonstrate to you, this 100 positions, what it's going to do to next year's budget. So, we're out until we started the year with almost 1.2 million going into their fund balance. This, if we were going to, for next year, for the full year, it's an impact of $323,000. Then you have to add another 100. Because I'm in budget land right now. There's another $133,000 increase already that's going to hit with the positions that will be budgeted full instead of just half a year. So that's why I did this, to let you know that in some cases, 1s and 2s and things like that happen. It really doesn't affect the overall budget because this is so big. I did want to show you that had we contemplated this in our budget at the very beginning of the year, this was the impact. This is what the budget would look like right now if we had decided at June 30th we were going to do this fiscal year starting in January.
So is the 323 plus the 133 you just said?
Yes, that'll
Well,
be for next year's
133 is
budget.
already done, though. We've already spent
Plan
that.
for that. Okay.
it's already
That's new employees.
It's the new
Yeah,
employees that
but-
the
but-
effect is going to
yeah,
hit next year.
Yeah, but that's already done.
Yes.
That's water on the
Right,
bridge. We're not
so-
talking about that today.
But I just don't want
163
you.
for half a year, so you basically double that.
Right.
Yes.
And will that inadvertently push the table up on other people?
No.
It won't.
well, it won't.
You're not
We're
Move those
just-
positions to new pay grades.
We're moving
It
these to
only
new pay grades. Let me just give you a base beginning point. Grade 17 is at an entry point at $31,763. That's for EMTs.
No experience?
No experience. Grade 15 is where all of our detention officers are, the other public safety. They're at $30,057, already $1,700 behind an EMT. Plus, we're going to move that up 3 grades, 9%. 9% is going to be about another $3,000. We're widening the gap substantially here. I don't know how to make this come out equitably yet, unless we do it, all of this at sometime together.
Is
The
it harder to
paramedic-
find an EMT than it is a guard?
Is that pool there? Is
The
that
paramedic too.
Is that level of training
that pool of
and all
employees? Yeah.
equal? I'm not trying to disrespect a guard at all. I'm just asking, EMT has to have so much school and all, a detention officer, do they? They walk in the door and they go through a 24-hour seminar and they're on the
Well,
job?
a few weeks
I
or
mean,
whatever, probably.
I'm just asking if that's apples to apples. And I'm
But
not
here-
an HR person.
This is not apples to apples, I
Might be a little
agree.
bit more
No.
dangerous.
Paramedic 2s are at 44,615 entry level, grade 29. We're talking about moving them up. Here are some of the people that are in grade 28s, and these are not lieutenants. Anybody that's anywhere that's a lieutenant is at grade 28 at 43,400. We've got any number of people besides those lieutenants that are at grade 28s. We've got, for example, in our recovery court, our assistant director is at that level. Lisa's got an accounting supervisor, payroll supervisors that are extraordinarily critical and experienced that are already below, and we're going to move that up even further. So these are some of the equity issues that appear to be evident. They may not even be evident. This is so complex, I'm not sure I really understand all of the implications.
Why is it might be a dumb question, but why is what the other counties paying like such a mystery? I mean, they post these jobs, don't
A
they?
lot of them don't, a lot of times you can't even find someone to talk to. you call Williamson, Williamson is really run, they think they're private, they're not. They're owned by the hospital board with the county. But they won't even tell you what their pay is. And I have friends there. They're not allowed to tell me. And they just won't discuss it. We do know that they've hired people at Williamson that were gonna make $5,000 or $6,000 more than us. That's why they left. But I can't get a,
What about Bedford County?
I don't know what they're, I didn't poll them because they're such a smaller county. I mean, I did Wilson County because Wilson just recently hired a bunch of individuals, and so I looked at Wilson County because that's, you know, a sister county that's growing in size, and so I looked at those individuals.
And you got Hamilton County.
Hamilton, Montgomery.
and you can pull down metros online.
Yeah, I
Get
pulled
things like that.
Metro.
Some of
Yeah.
them-
But they're far, Metro
Yeah,
far
not a
exceeds
good
everybody else.
comparison.
That's not a good comparison. But it is for you to see
We do
in the
compete
scheme of
against them.
things, right?
I just think that it's very, very important with these positions. It just kind of feels like we making this decision tonight, we'd be throwing money at the problem. And I don't want you to lose any more people. I know the value of having to hire and train and bring people on, it's extremely expensive. But it just feels like we need to know a lot more exactly where are they going, what are some other reasons why they're leaving, how are we proposing, showing the benefits to the individuals. If they're driving to Bedford County, I mean, gas is, you know, you're cheap.
Right now. It is right
You're
now.
still gonna spend money to drive, you're not gonna have the quality of life you have in Rutherford County, so how are they receiving?
We have a lot of employees that actually live in Bedford County. You know, they live in surrounding counties. So, you know, a lot of people don't move to the county they're working in, especially when they work 10 days a month. So, you know, we have some that drive almost from Kentucky. So-
One of the problems we're facing is, I don't know if it was Joe or Mike, one, benefits isn't a driving factor. I mean, if you look at our benefits package, which is, I think I said that in public safety, that we as department heads have to do a better job saying this is what our benefit package is, while you don't realize, you know, what you're losing, some of those individuals is just not of interest to them because we're one of the 5 entities that's paying for a pension, a full. I mean, others are doing 95 or 90%, but, you know, City of Murfreesboro's doing a 4% matching. So, I mean, how is that compared to the pension that we're offering? And then when you look at the cost of insurance, that's a whole nother animal. You know, we're slowly doing a percentage a year, but even at a percentage a year, we're still doing better on some of the insurance benefits than other people's are. So, some of it just boils down to how much am I going to take home in my pocket. So they're not looking at what is my benefit, what are the benefits of me staying long-term.
We have a pretty highly skilled labor force in what I do on a daily basis, and it's 300 to 400 people, and they can pick up the phone tomorrow, and many of them move to another company and make more money, but they don't. They stay for other reasons, and that's why I'm led to believe it's like we could do this, but I just don't think we're gonna all of a sudden it's gonna fix the issue. I think we need to have a strategic plan around this, and then in turn, like the mayor says, I'm afraid it creates a big ripple effect, and it's going to create many other things here on the budget that we're going to have to make some really tough decisions on it coming up this year. I think we need to have some more information to move forward with something like this big.
Well, pay is one of the things, and I always just cringe to have to come to you guys with that, you know, because it is almost an annual thing. I know Commissioner Durham says, well, if you do this next year, you'll be back next year. And that's the unfortunate part when you're dealing with that. That is one of your biggest expenses. But one of the things that when they talked about the workforce, and I know that they've done this before, and we talked about this as well, and Joe even came up with an idea years ago, I believe, where they're talking about that they're overworking to try to help with the quality of life while they're at work as well as the income as well. Rotating, you know, from a higher volume to a lower volume every couple of weeks or something to, you know, they're in a high volume this week and 2 weeks from now they know that they're going to get a breather. And so that was one of the things that we discussed, or even pairing with, you know, a higher volume with a lower volume station, and they know 2 weeks I'm at this station, 2 weeks I'm at this station. So that, I mean, there's some things that I think we have to do internally as well to try to help offset this issue as well. If it's that they're overworked, we've got to look at how we can, I won't say average out, but you know what I mean, kind of balance the workload between weeks and some of those things. And I don't know that that's the answer. Mike and Joe would know that better than me because they deal with this every day. But, you know, when you're saying you're overworked, then you have to say, okay, well, some of the stations have, you know, if you look at their call volumes are clearly less than others, so.
One of the pieces of information that several commissioners have asked for is for comparable salaries in other counties like Bedford County or Cannon County, and you don't have that information, and you may not be able to get that information, and I understand that. But I think that salaries in these other counties will have an effect on our vacancy rate. And so I think you'd have a stronger case to make if you could show that the vacancy rate of EMTs is 10% and that's substantially higher than the vacancy rate for deputies or for some of the other positions in these comparable pay grades. If you could show that EMT...
The turnover rate, is that what you're talking
Well, no,
about?
I mean, you know, you've got 90 positions and 10 of them are vacant, or 9 of them are vacant. I think that's what you said. You had 90 positions, 9 are vacant, not filled, and so you've got a 10%, I'm calling it a 10% unfilled rate or vacancy rate. If that percent for deputies is 5%, then you can make the case that even though they're paid about the same thing, there's a whole lot more open positions on a percentage basis for EMTs than deputies. But what if we instead find out that about 10% of the EMT positions are unfilled, and about 10% of the deputy positions are unfilled, and about 10% of the positions in several other comparable departments in comparable pay grades are unfilled, then it seems like this is kind of piecemeal to provide pay raises for different positions in the ambulance service, but not in some of these other areas that may have vacancy rates that are as high, or maybe turnover rates that are as high. And I guess I talk about these vacancy rates because even if we can't get Bedford County salaries and Cannon County salaries, the impact that's going to have on us is unfilled positions. And so I think that's why that's a piece of information that's important, and we should be able to get our own vacancy rates, even if we can't get Bedford County salaries.
Oh, I may have misspoke. I didn't ask Bedford or Cannon County for their salaries because of their size of their population. So if you misunderstood that, I didn't ask, but I will ask that. So.
Well, and really, I think the vacancy rate's more important than the salaries in those surrounding counties.
You know, a footnote to just what Charlie's saying before, because there's so complicated, so many moving parts. I think it would also be helpful on that vacancy rate to note, you know, to like date it. You know what I mean? Like, have these 9 positions been open for a really long time? Are they hard positions to fill versus are they just that 9 that we are constantly going to churn and turn over? So I would date some of those to see this is how long it's been vacant, because that's gonna factor into how you're working the rest of your workload. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let me
I was
make
going to
sure
say, we've had this exact conversation about 14 years ago.
That's what I was fixing to bring up.
We had the exact same thing happen back when I was new on the commission. We were losing our EMTs and our paramedics, and because it's a lesser number of total employees, Wilson County can raise the pay for their paramedics or their EMTs because that's a smaller group. They may not go in there and do it for your school teachers or your sheriff's deputies and detention officers and all. And so I'm agreeing with everything that's being said here. Now I think we're trying to do a knee-jerk reaction, and you've got a problem, and I hope the way I feel this is headed is probably for deferral or something tonight is where I think this is headed. I may be wrong. But I hope your employees know that this committee wants to do something. We just want to do the right thing. I think we understand. I think regardless of what these numbers say, we're going to do something because you lost 2 employees today, from what I believe somebody said. You've got 2 ambulances going to be sitting tomorrow. That means the workload's fixing to get worse. It's snowballing on us.
Right.
You know, and it's going to be people jumping off the ship. And we don't need that to happen.
And we can have nice equipment and nice stations, but if we don't have the people to run them.
We've got to take care of our employees. We just want to do it in the correct way, in an equitable way. And if that means more money, then I'm ready to vote for more money at the correct time. But we need to look at the full picture and stuff. And I think we definitely need to take care of our employees. But I cut off Commissioner P. He was about to say something. But
You basically said the same thing I was going to say. Commissioner Kaplan asked, well, you know, if we do this, will it help? Well, you know, about 14 years ago, we were in this situation. We did give the increases, and it pretty well stopped the bleeding. And see, and it's not just the paramedics, you know, these deputies, for instance, they're going through school, and it cost us $8,000 to $10,000 per head to send them to the school. They were going to school and then bailing on us after they got to school and going to Murfreesboro City or some of these other agencies. And, you know, we're basically a training ground for other people, and that's basically what's happening here again. You know, we're gonna have to keep our pay equitable, if not better, than some of the surrounding counties. But still, they've asked good questions. There's information I'd like to see too, you know, how much are we paying versus these other people, if possible, to know that. You know,
Is there any other agencies, Bedford, Coffee and Cannon, is there anybody
I mean,
else?
what
Other than
we're-
the ones I've mentioned already?
Well, you need to look at the ones we're losing them to, is where you need to look. And I assume you know that, and you know all
We're
of
losing
this
to
if you
Bedford,
don't.
I know, Wilson, and you know more than I do, but I just hear
City of
on the
Murfreesboro,
street,
losing
you know.
there's 20,
We've lost-
28. I called the Metro's ambulance service, the HR department there, and I asked how many of their full-time employees had a Rutherford County address, and 28 of their employees have Rutherford County addresses, which means, you know, they're driving.
Yeah, but
So I
you're-
did ask that of them, just to see how many were driving to Nashville.
You're getting your PRNs though, you're getting a high amount of them that are applying. And what, to me, what that's telling me is they've got the other job. Now though, they can get extra pay if they need it, and they're the ones that carry the hammer. Because they can say, yes, yeah, I'll work those 2 shifts, I'm off where I am now, and I can get the extra money if they want. And that's why
Or
you're
at their
getting.
mercy, not being at our mercy.
Right, which there. And also, somebody asked earlier, but an EMT needs more than a high school diploma to come in, right? He's got training, how much training is he getting in advance? It's gotta be more, somebody that goes out to be a jailer.
They've added time. It's about a year now because they got.
Actually, it's almost 2 years.
Okay.
They recently changed the training for EMTs and created 2 levels. There's an EMT basic, which is what it used to be for an EMT, but an EMT basic is not allowed to work on an ambulance. In order to be an EMT, advanced EMT, which is what the beginning level is, you have to go through the EMT basic school and then the AEMT class, and that costs those individuals about $5,000. That's the cost, and it takes about 2 years. A paramedic is another 18 months on top of that, or almost 2 years on top of that. Paramedic 2, their class is kind of hard to judge, but it'd probably take a paramedic 1 another year to become a paramedic 2 if they worked hard at it.
We're talking 5 to 6 years to be a paramedic too. But what I'm getting at is, for a detention officer, it's a high school diploma, isn't it? And they can go in and win the court, you know, and get your background check done. But then they train them after they come. So what you're getting is people coming in, I'm saying, that they can have a high school degree and they can come in. These other guys have had to go through training, and EMTs are overall younger than, obviously, than paramedics, et cetera, and they're looking for the money and to get started.
I don't want to throw any of the county employees under the bus, and I wouldn't do that at all.
No.
But I'll be the first person to tell you that you really need to look hard at all your public safety employees.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
But I don't represent those other agencies. I represent this one, and this is the one that I'm concerned with. If we go very much further, I'm going to be back up here asking for more overtime money. I've already had to come and get 200,000.
That seems to be the problem, because I keep hearing it over and over that they're overworked. I don't think it really, your paramedic, what's the salary pay grade for paramedic right now?
But the starting salary is $39,841 for a paramedic 1.
Paramedic
That's
one.
the entry level.
So Williamson County has a job posted right here, maximum 35 to 39,000. So what I'm hearing over and over, I think, is as with any of us, is they're just overworked.
I
It's
agree with
different
you.
in making the same as what they're making in adjoining county, but going to the adjoining county and not having to work over and over and over.
I agree with you. And we
Makes a
had
big
one
difference.
person that left and went to Bedford County with that, and I think that Bedford County and us are relatively equal in terms of pay. But they left and went to Bedford County because they weren't going to get worked as hard over there. And the same thing exists with the Murfreesboro Fire Department. The Murfreesboro Fire Department is not an ambulance service, it's a first responder agency. So if there's a call within the city limits of Murfreesboro, they send one of their first responder trucks with paramedic or an EMT or both on there. We send an ambulance, we get there about equal amount of time as being first. They come there and they're there maybe 15 minutes at the most, and then they're back at the fire hall. When we pick that patient up, we transport them to the hospital and deliver them there, and then do about 30 or 40 minutes worth of paperwork on that patient. So you can see you're not comparing apples to apples there. So we're relatively about the same as Murfreesboro, from my understanding, even though they don't share that information with us. I think that we're about equal, but we're losing people to them because of workload.
And what about EMT or paramedic? Where are they at on the pay grade?
Comparison to who?
Just where's EMT at?
An EMT, an entry-level EMT with the county is $31,763. City of Murfreesboro pays about $2,000 more for an EMT, but they pay $2,000 more than us for an EMT, but they pay $2,000 less for a paramedic. But like Mike said, they go on the call, they put the bandage on, you know, get them stabilized, and then our team comes in and takes over and finishes up the
Wilson
call.
County's $30,098.
Wilson County's EMTs are $39,942, and their paramedics are $46,600.
No, their EMT's got a job posted for $30,098.
I don't know what that is. Their HR director, you said Wilson?
Mm-hmm.
Their HR director gave me the salary of $39,942.
They recently just had a raise, I don't know what date that is.
Here's their salary structure right here.
I think that we need to have a plan around getting those 15 positions filled, is what it sounds like, is because they're overworked. I definitely think they all definitely need raises, but I think that the first problem is they're just overworked, and that's why people are just going to leave. I can't work that many hours.
Even though Sonia mentioned rotating, that's got tremendous disadvantages. We have a plan in place that will solve some of this overworking thing. You know, we had budgeted to put 2 quick trucks on that just basically didn't have a zone. They just occupied a zone that was left open. We've got another ambulance that's scheduled to go in at Burton Street that will relieve that station, but we can't fill the positions.
Almost got a perfect storm going on here. You've got people leaving because of being overworked. You need more people to relieve them being overworked, but as every time somebody leaves, it makes it that much worse. So we've got to stop the bleeding somehow.
Well, we probably need to act quickly, but could you come back next month with some statistics showing what % of positions are unfilled by departments, so we know, is this the worst one, or are there 4 or 5 in public safety that are equally bad, or is this maybe not the worst one?
Are you talking about in our county or across the Middle
just
Tennessee?
positions vacant in Rutherford County by department.
Well, that's the
that's
easiest thing we
easy.
can do.
I misunderstood your
That's
question.
a small effort.
But we don't have that information.
No, we don't.
We don't know whether EMTs and ambulance service
Next
is the
month,
worst.
we may have
or
3
equal.
more department heads sitting right here ready to
And
speak
the
up for their
salary-
departments.
Well, that's why we need
Yeah.
this information, but maybe we can get it next month.
Say it again.
Can the county issue sign-on bonuses?
We talked about that. There is some issues that come with the sign-on
We don't
bonus
have
because
that
there's no.
policy available, but we could certainly.
You got 15 positions that could be immediately filled at $2,500, that's $37,000. You could do $2,000, so you could do something with a 6-month agreement. You know, so they don't come take the sign-on bonus and they leave. I don't know, I'm just trying to think creative to get those positions filled immediately with qualified individuals.
That's what Tampa's doing. Tampa, Florida is doing exactly that.
It's a lot cheaper too at $37,000.
And we talked about that, and then so what's going to happen with the one person that came on the day before we started, that, you know.
That's-
There's always
that's
a
gonna
cut
drop.
date.
Tough luck.
Yep. So, and we discussed that. That was one of the things that we discussed, was a sign-on bonus or a referral bonus or.
I mean, we thought no idea was a bad idea. We looked at everything, but we still could pick holes in things. And the problem I had with the bonus in general was kind of what we were talking about. You could actually hire somebody in new, and they'll make more money than somebody that's been there for a couple of years. And we're really struggling with that 1 to 10 year group of people, that early people. So anything you do to alienate the people that are already here, it may push them further out the door. So I was just a little apprehensive about it, but we talked about everything that we can think of.
We talked about
We're
it.
open
But
to hear
they
other
also
things.
look at it and they say your hours are going to go down. So it's kind of a win-win for both parties.
We talked about differential pay for the busy stations. We said, okay, if the rotation was an issue, you know, the ones with the highest volume, then they would know. We talked about, of course, adding units to address, but you can't add it, we can't hire to fill the units we got, so there's no point in adding the unit. We talked about different schedules, different days. I mean, we studied about, I mean, for a good solid 3 months, Joe and Mike and I wore Melanie out, you know, asking her, can you send this to me? You know, different things. And I mean, the sign-on bonus was one that we did, or a retention bonus. We talked about that to cover those individuals that were at the 5 to 7 year. To get them to stay, if you get to 5 years, you get a retention bonus for another 5 years if you stay, or something like that. You know, to try to get that middle of the road.
Yeah, you need some carrots. You need some more carrots.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, what you got here, your requested amendment is $323,110, which is how it would affect next year's budget.
A full,
Half a year,
that's
be
what,
double
a
that.
full year is what that would, if you do that, yeah.
Over what his existing budget is, it'd be another $323,000 basically to do this upgrade, and that would affect 100 people in your department.
This is a Band-Aid, in my opinion, to get us to the next part. And whatever we do, we need to remember our history, and however we fix this, we don't allow it to go another
Get this
12 or
far.
14 years and hit us right back in the same place we were in 02, 03, or whenever it was we were
It's
there
almost like the
before.
table has to be lifted according to either consumer price index or something on an annual basis. You have to look at that and say, what are the trends? One of the things that I mentioned, I don't know, a couple of years ago, was saying if TCRS moved up a percentage on the pension for retirees, then maybe that was, they've already vetted it to know that the economy needs it, and then they put their team of financial people in to look at it. You know, something to address the table on a consistent basis instead of
Because it's a small incremental step year to year, but it's a huge jump when you get this far behind. And I don't think I'm telling anybody anything. And that's kind of what we did is we're a good 15% behind in the tables. And that, it does, you know, it's kind of a pay me now, pay me later. Now we need to pay a lot.
Well, you just said that you're 15% behind at the tables, yet y'all hadn't really told us how we stand versus everybody around us. Are we 15% behind everybody else?
No, I was going purely by of just a dimensional look, and that's the inflation rate. We're, if you look at the national inflation
Okay,
rate,
I understand what you
we're
said.
a good 15. I'm not doing a market study. It's just
I
just
think-
what a dollar spends today compared to what it spent back in 2006. We're 15%
We don't want
on
to
the
go back to the
table.
60s. We'd all be sick
Yeah.
looking at some of
Right,
that.
right.
And
I
one of
think
the
we're
things-
starting to circle ourselves a little bit here, so why don't we get a little focus going as far as if we want to take action tonight, we'll entertain a motion, or if not, we need to know exactly what we want from Sonia and the ambulance department so we can, because I think everybody here is committed to doing something, and I hope you can, regardless of what happens right here in the next 5 minutes, I hope you can relay to your employees that we want to make this right. We just want to do it in the correct way. If some of them are about to walk out the door, ask them to please hold on and give us the right opportunity to do something correctly instead of doing a knee-jerk reaction, which could be the wrong thing and could open the door for problems with all the rest of the public safety departments. And they all need to be looked at in some form or fashion. So let's make sure, I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but we're repeating ourselves a little bit now. Make sure everybody relays what information they want, or if anybody wants to make a motion, we'll entertain that at this time.
I've got a quick question. Mayor, how do you feel about this amendment here, or this motion?
I think we need at least 30 more days to develop a more comprehensive plan with more supporting information that will help you know how we made these recommendations.
Well, I don't think we need to make a motion to table this for 30 days to get that information, or do we? Mr. Chairman.
I don't know, I mean, if we have an understanding or we can do it, we want to make sure that Sonia's
what you
noted
want.
exactly what we want. But I give her this time, so we're not sitting here a month from now with the same information in front of us and everybody's saying, well, I want to know what Alahoma pays or something like that. So
Well, I also want to know how it's going to affect the sheriff's department, because I know, you know, like you said, the others are basically in the same situation, so, you know, that's something we need to look at too. So 30 days from now, we'll.
But at your next meeting, we will promise to spend more time, at least I will, they spend a lot more time on it than I have, and we'll bring you back a comprehensive, broad-based kind of recommendation, or at least tell you why we can't do some of these things. I've written down even a number of things that Sonia says they've already discussed, and some of you have suggested, but we would be better equipped with good factual data from which you can make some decisions, hopefully.
All right, so, well, do we need a motion to defer this, you think, or just, we'll just have this on next month's agenda, but no, if there are no objections?
Just let the minutes reflect that we've had this discussion and that we've all agreed that we're going to come back and continue this at the next meeting.
Well, I for one will commit that I'm ready to vote for something to help the employees. I know it's a problem, I've mentioned it in the past, and I hope they can hold on just a little longer and we can do something correctly.
Along the same lines of something you were talking about, one of the other things we discussed was to increase the PRN rate, hourly rate. If we have more PRNs, that might help offset as well to fill in those gaps too, that we might increase the hourly rate of PRN because they're not receiving benefits. That might help, so.
So will you cost compare that to what's going on in the market?
To see what they're paying for PRNs. Okay.
I would be interested to know if other counties have got EMTs the same as an entry-level job. You know, because it looks to me, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody to jail by any means. If somebody go out there, and I said this earlier, have a high school diploma and go through a 24-hour orientation or something, and then go to work, they may have to take more training on the job, but you got to go through a year plus minimum just to get on an ambulance. You know, and in my opinion, that's, you got a safety factor at one end, but I just wonder if that's apples to apples.
I asked them all to give me their pay tables with their titles, so I don't think that'll be a problem. So I'll just look at the EMTs, the paramedics, detention officer, patrol officer, and firefighters.
That's true.
Will that work?
That'd be great. If there's nothing else on this item, we'll move on.
Thank you. Thank you.
That brings us to other business.
No, one small amendment.
I'm looking at the paper copy here. Oh, general fund budget amendment for human resources. That's why you stuck around.
Just like, it's pretty easy.
I already marked it out on my piece of paper.
We do an employee recognition every year for those individuals who've reached a milestone anniversary, 5, 10, 15, 20, or anybody who retired during the fiscal year. And we do that without utilizing taxpayers' dollars. I try to find sponsors for it, and we've been blessed enough that Cornerstone Federal Credit Union has sponsored the meal every year that we've been doing this. In the past, Liberty Mutual sponsored our entertainment, a musician, and tablecloths and centerpiece arrangements and those type things, but they opted out this year. So Nationwide, who is our 457B provider, has offered to give us $250 to pay for table arrangements. And so they're going to give us a check. So basically that's what this is doing. They're giving me a check for $250. We're putting it in the fund, moving it to my account so then I can pay for the table arrangements. So it's a wash, $250 in, $250 out.
Need a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner McKee. Commissioner Jernigan. All those in favor say, well, that's money. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Petty?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. And now, is there anything else to come before us? We can't cut the school budget because Watchdog is here. Anything else come for us tonight? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.